Sell the team, sell the team, sell the team. White Sox fans, your wish may come true. How long will that process take? We'll give you the details on that coming up. Hopefully, cross your fingers if you're a Sox fan. In college basketball, boys were separated from the men as the Duke Blue Devils blew out the final lineup at MSG on a Saturday night. In the NBA, the Bulls tanking process is going by beautifully as they blow a big lead against the Phoenix Suns. Luka Doncic and LeBron James proved to be the best duo in the NBA as they take down the Denver Nuggets. In baseball, the Cubs are off to a hot start, while the White Sox, well, you know what it is. That it will have our final tribute to Black TV sitcoms for Old School TV Monday for Black History Month, and we paid tributes to two legends, one in the broadcasting field and one in the singing department. That and a whole lot more. So it's the Monday edition of Second City Sports starts right now. Welcome to this Monday edition of Second City Sports. You're live in the living color and locked and loaded right here on Sports Soul Chicago, along with Miss Lakeem McGee, which is she. I ain't Cindy Brown. You know that this me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter X in the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Kim McGee on the Twitter, executes again, IG.
Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast. We're located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We're not unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinion during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you can definitely hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comment section. The keynote will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, dumb, or stupid, I forget like Kina to give her full powers to give you Dumbos to Bill and Beer Boot.
Toodles!
But before we begin, we must give a shout out to the replay game for all of you that's checking us out on the replay, and shout out as always to the live game that's watching us live right now on our YouTube and Facebook channels. Here's our motto: don't you never ever forget where we talk about sports, entertainment, and more. You know we will provide.
I will provide you with some of the best here on Second City Sports in the last Monday this month in February, as we'll talk some college hoops, as we're about 3 weeks away from Selection Sunday, as I got a master class from one of the top teams at MSG on Saturday, I should say, and of course other local teams, trying to position themselves for their conference tournament starting in about a week or two. Of course, in the NBA, the Bulls, well, let's just say we're in the bad part of the season now for them. And also to the rest of the NBA, as Luka and LeBron beat Jokic, Murray in the game, in Denver. Also, we'll do a little bit of NFL, of course, pre-Prisco's new list, and also maybe some rule changes, maybe some guys on the move. We'll talk about that. We salute 2 legends who passed away earlier this morning, and we conclude our salute to Black sitcoms for Old School TV Monday with a show that celebrated a big milestone, but unfortunately, it's kind of been fallen by the wayside lately. But first, Sid, could there be some new ownership coming up for the White Sox? Well, if you saw the news over the weekend, Justin Ashiba, who is, if the name sounds familiar, may sound familiar for some of you White Sox fans, he is, if I get this thing, I think it doesn't fall out of my ear. He is actually still the minority owner for the White Sox, of course, with Mr. Jerry Reinsdorf. Now, the rumor was that Ishbia was gonna on track to buy the Twins. Well, he has taken off his bid off the board for the Twins, and now is going to concentrate on getting a bigger stake in the White Sox. Now, Does this mean that Ryan Storr's going to sell the team? I know some White Sox fans are hoping about we're hoping for that. We'll see. He and his brother Matt, they build a nice little net worth for real estate, and I know Justin's a lawyer. They have about like $5-6 billion. So they already own the Phoenix Suns. Well, that hasn't turned out so well so far. The Phoenix Mercury, it's been okay. They own a MLS team out in Nashville. They actually, I think they went as far as the semifinals before they got to MLS Cup last season. So he knows how to spend money. So it looks like, again, that's official. It might be several weeks before it is official. But if you read the Athletic article, it looks like the White Sox might have new ownership coming soon. So I don't want to speak for White Sox fans. So I'll let my buddy sit here take the reins here. And what do you think about all those reports and stuff like that? Do you think Ishbia and his brother Matt could be a good owners for the White Sox?
Let's hope that is true because one thing that Jerry Reinsdorf does not do on a consistent basis is spend money. You spend when you do spend money, you spend money on the wrong players. Just ask the 2020-21 team, even though the division title was theirs in the AL Central 2021. Soon as the ship went down the drain, so did the payroll. So we know that Reinsdorf doesn't like to spend money like that. You look at ownerships in both New York City teams with the Yankees and the Mets. Steve Cohen came out in his press about a week and a half so ago, said he was kind of upset with the fans not supporting the team, but we all know what kind of season they had. They lost to the Dodgers in NLCS at the starting terribly last year. We all know what the Yankees tradition is all about in terms of winning, and Hal Steinbrenner taking over for his late father. So the Yankees, even though they pivot here a little bit over the last several years, they are willing to spend money. We talk about the Dodgers. We talk about a couple of franchises as well in baseball. There's only a few of them that know how to spend money wisely. But this will be a welcoming change for the Chicago White Sox. I think many of the fan base in the fan base, including myself, will be happy. A couple of questions that are on the table. I think one, I think is answered, but you want to hear officially from the new ownership group. Will the Chicago White Sox stay in Chicago? I believe that answer is a yes. If that's so, number two, uh, what are the odds? How have the odds increased of them getting that new stadium, especially in that area downtown, which has been talked about over the last year or so? So, it's hopeful news, but I'm I'm like the state of Missouri. You got to show me first, and it all sounds good, but until it's official, we'll see. But it's good for a while to dream up of some of these possibilities coming up with the new stadium, possibly a new stadium, and what would this team look like? We all know what it looks like in its current form, but it's nice to talk about the possibilities. But none of this is possible until the transfer of the transaction of the sale of the team is actually official.
Well, and if you got to think long term here, right? Because if you think about this, I mean,
Hmm.
there might be a work stoppage coming up after the 26th season. So what if,
Hmm.
okay, if they, sell all this and stuff, and Reinsdorf may puts in there that look, Ishbia takes over either when he retires or if he dies, that's really gonna be the thing here. And if you're Ishbia, what do you do? Do you try to spend because that's one thing he and his brother are good at spending money.
Hmm.
Do you do that, or do you wait until the whole labor strife is done after this done, but after the 26th season, maybe they'll put a salary cap and this and that. So you kind of wonder, like, okay, what happens here? Because if you think about the '05 team, they weren't really built to win. They kind of caught lightning in a bottle, if you will. So that kind of started this to be like they got Jeremy Dye, of course, the veteran from the Royals. They got AJ. They got
Hmm.
Jeff Blum and Scotty Potts and stuff like that. They actually just happened to catch lightning in a bottle. So that is sort of like interesting to kind of how you look at it if you're a White Sox fan. So I think for me, like you said, I think unless it's official, I think White Sox fans should be cautiously optimistic because there could be some snafus. It could be, White Sox might be a little stubborn about it. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. Like I said, it's still a long way to go. Now it's encouraging that he is. I'm talking about HBA is focusing on getting a bigger say in the White Sox, but unless of course Ryan Silva is going to relinquish control over the next year or two, all this is sort of moot at this point.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago City. LaKena here with you. We're talking about possible new ownership down the line for the Southside Hitmen in the Chicago White Sox. LaKena, here's the third element that needs to be brought up. I know Ishbia and his family, they're from the Chicagoland area. They grew up here,
Mm-hmm.
but how much does Ishbia know about not only the politics within the city of Chicago, but
Mm-hmm.
within the state of Illinois as well? Jerry Reinsdorf found out the hard way with our current governor, Governor J.B. Pritzker, that I want a new stadium. I'm not going to put any money to pay for. I want you to help me out.
Mm-hmm.
Governor Pritzker told him, I think, 3 times within the last
Mm-hmm.
year. The
Yep.
answer is no. Now, I know the Bears are trying to work on their new stadium, but at least they're willing to put up some money, which Ryan Story is not willing to put up any money as of this moment. So, how much will Ishbia dig into the politics of both the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois? How much does he know right now? If not, you need to do your research and start the process right now, because we all know that just putting the just the political stuff aside, Lakina, we all know how business gets done in the state of Illinois. They take their time on certain things,
Mm-hmm.
but how much of the political climate does he know about, and how much does he need to catch up on before purchasing his stake within the White Sox?
I believe his wife, talking about Justin's wife, Kristen, is from the area, and I think she is a lawyer or a real estate lawyer at the very least. I think from what I've read. So I'm wondering, like, is she going to play a little bit of a part? Perhaps maybe try to get if it's still plans are to put get a new stadium for the White Sox. Are there going to be sort of things where, look, a lot could happen in the next couple of years? I mean, we
Mhm.
might have a new mayor, probably very likely a new mayor in the next couple of years.
Right.
You're all gonna have to deal with that person, and of course, you'll leave in
Mhm.
assuming that Prisker decides to run for a third term. You're still gonna have to deal with him too. So it's gonna be interesting to see. Like, look, Ishbia built his wealth. Also, I mean, he was a lawyer too, so I'm wondering, like, could he use his little lawyer skills to kind of try to convince the people downstate to perhaps maybe get some money for a new stadium? Is he gonna have to maybe put some money in, knowing that maybe they may have to do that if they want to kind of materialize? So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see like how all this goes. Again, first step, they got to get this whole thing with him and Ryan Stork to kind of try to get put together a little package where get it approved by MLB, try to get it approved
Mhm.
before the labor strike, so you can kind of see where everything kind of goes, and just go on from there.
And also, too, people must forget, and those folks, if you're a Minnesota Twins fan that's listening and watching us right now, and those fan bases that have gone through their favorite teams gone through uh, transitional phases in terms of selling of the franchise, these things take time. It's not like you go into the grocery store, you buy your groceries, and then it's automatically yours after you pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
The process takes time, usually a year, maybe a couple years, and it depends on how the process goes. Sometimes there are bumps in the road with these possible transactions. So, people have to be careful here. I'm with you, looking at cautiously optimistic. Optimistic. There could be some blind spots that both parties don't know about in terms of Ishbia and Reinsdorf. So, like you mentioned, there may be a possible work stoppage following next season. So, there we all know those are potential roadblocks there, but it could be something else that we're not seeing right now.
To be continued with this, as we've been saying, it seems like for the last like so yeah, but it's definitely going to be to be continued as well. We'll talk more about this, and we'll give you guys more updates as they come. But we're gonna go to the hardwood coming up next. As we'll start with the NBA as the Bulls. The good bad part of the season is one bad part of the season starts is starting today, and also too are the Lakers now the favorites in the West after beating Denver. We'll talk about that as well, and also in the East. Joel Embiid might be shutting it down for the year. As for college hoops, we're 3 weeks away from from getting our brackets, and of course the Illini. Well, they got smacked by the Duke, and a whole lot more. Like Keenan McGee, City Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. We talk hoops coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks? They can be a real lifesaver.
And I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you. Your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the Monday edition. You're locked and loaded and live in the living color right here on Sports Zone Chicago. I'm Sid. That's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Keena McGee on the Twitter, executes McGee, and IG.
As we dive into Bulls, NBA, and college basketball talk for this segment, if you have any questions or comments for us during this half hour, you can hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions and comments to the comment section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you.
Off to you, Steve, on Saturday. This was an early, late afternoon matinee. As the Bulls, they were up big, but the Suns came back to beat them 121-117. Devin Booker had 29 points for the Suns. Josh Giddey had 24 for the Bulls, leading the way there for them. And the three-point shot continues to be let's just say a deterrent, and would be more of is an understatement for the Bulls, as especially those last few minutes. I mean, they were 18 for 53 from 3-point range. That's not good. That's not going to do it. I think it's like one of the highest 3-point attempts that they've had all year. 53 attempts and made 18. So that's just terrible. Kobe White had 20. Vooch had a double, 16 and 11 boards. Montes Buzelis had 15. But we're in the fun, the bad part of the season now for the Bulls, as they fall at 22-35. They face the Sixers tonight. We'll talk about that. Because one of the main players there, we probably won't see him for the rest of the season. We'll get to that in a second. But so what do you think about what happened on Saturday?
As I mentioned, fun bad if you're a Chicago Bulls fan. If I had hair like Lakina, I'll be pulling it out right now. But the Bulls are entertaining. You just watch a regular game. They are entertaining. If they get down, they'll fight back like they did on Saturday. Or if they had a big lead like they did a couple weeks ago against Golden State, they'll find a way to blow it. But here's a couple plays to pay attention to now since the trade acquisition for Zach LaVine from here to Sacramento. Matas Buzelis, he's getting more playing time. I think you're going to see more confidence in him as he gets more playing time. You're going to see more of his skills being developed on that floor in real time. Also, too, I talked about this player all season long. It looks like he's starting to play well, and that's Josh Giddey. You mentioned he had 24 points, including 3 of 5 shooting from 3-point range. I know he's up for a potential contract extension this summer. I know many Bulls fans are in or out on him. I'm kind of in the middle on him right now. I want to see what the rest of the season looks like for him as he gets more playing time. And so you look at the other young guys too on this roster, including Dalen Terry and Julian Phillips. And you want to see what those guys are made of. Are they part of what this new future will bring for the Chicago Bulls? We mentioned the Bulls front office 1,000 times on the show. They will have a lot of work to do this summer with the draft and free agency. So as of right now, I'm looking at Matas Buzelis and Josh Giddey along with Julian Phillips and Dalen Terry, all those 4 young guys. I want to see what they do. Will it be realistically a part of this future? I think Buzelis is a yes, but those other 3 guys is a big old question mark at this point.
Kevin Herter had 14 off the bench, for the Bulls as well. So yeah, I'm kind of wondering that. Okay, look, if you are going to do the whole complete tear down thing, do you trust AK to and Eversley to do the tear down, and build up? So that's another thing that the Bulls fans gonna have to ponder that for the next year or two. So look, they play the Sixers tonight in Philly. We'll get to the Joel and Bean this in a bit here, but it kind of just feels like just soldiering along, and they'll still make the play in now, unless Philadelphia. They're still they lost to Brooklyn, so they're down a bit. Brooklyn's actually now the team they got to worry about now. So if you're cheering your heart for Brooklyn, if you're a Bulls fan, so I don't know. It's just like, okay, we're in the fun bad part. Okay, play well and then lose. So I guess that's where we're at here at this point in the season.
Yeah, like I said, the Bulls. This is what happens when you're in NBA hell in NBA mediocrity. You're not good enough to be a playoff team, but you're not bad enough to be a lottery team to get potentially Cooper flag. You're stuck in the middle of this way. This franchise has been operating for a long time now. So we can all say it's time for a change and this and that. We all been asking this question since the summer, and we're going to ask it again. Pick a lane and stick to it. But the question is, and I brought this up on our show a couple of Fridays ago with our panel. The Rhinestores told AK and Mark Eversley to fix this when they got here 3 or 4 years ago. They did fix it, but it was unfortunate with injuries and other situations around the team. They had to break this team up. Will the Rhinestores tell them just to rebuild this and make it and turn it around as quote unquote quick as possible, or will they tell them to do both? Because especially in today's NBA, Lakina, it's hard to do both, rebuild and be competitive at the same time. It just doesn't happen that way. You got to pick a lane and stick to it.
Yeah. So okay, and enough about the bad Bull squad, and let's get to some good basketball. We'll stick to Saturday night. The Lakers beat Denver by 23 points, 123-100. Luka had 32 points for the Lakers in that matchup, and I guess you can kind of say that Denver have been playing very well. They won 11 of the last 12 prior to that, and it was a complete team effort too. LeBron only 25 points. I mean, only, I guess you can say by LeBron standards, but look, other guys stepped up. Roy Hachimura had 21. Reeves had 23. So yeah, I mean, I think that's what you need if you're the Lakers. If you want to go far, perhaps maybe challenge in the Western Conference, other guys are gonna have to step up, and they actually did that on Saturday against Denver.
Yeah, and that's what we talked about when Anthony Davis was a member of that team. Who's going to be that? Who's going to be that top guy next to LeBron James? We all know LeBron just turned 40 this past December. So at his stage of his career, can he give it to you in spurts? Yes, but you don't want him to be the facilitator. I think he's been telling people that himself. That I'm at the stage of my career. I don't have too much time left. My role is to be the facilitator and now with Luka Doncic acquired, Luka Doncic is much younger, 15 years younger than me. He's the man. Let him take over. Let me pick my spots, and also like you said too, other role players going to have to step up now with GM Rob Pelinka. Uh, well, he's going to have to worry about getting a dominant big man over the summer, along with a point guard, a solid point guard. He'll worry about that this summer, Brad. So right now with the Lakers, they have the best, in my opinion, the best duo in the league. I know Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum of Boston will have something to say about that, but the way the Lakers played last Saturday night, I'm not too much worried about Denver yet, but whoever the Lakers, I think the Lakers will play Houston or Memphis in that first round. If should they stay at 5, perhaps move up to 4. I will give them a chance right now to beat Houston. Memphis, they may have a shot, but Memphis has a tough front line, and that's something the Lakers do not have right now. So I think there'll be a toss up there, but I think the Lakers could beat Houston right now. And Houston's a very good team, folks. So I'm not saying it's a slam dunk for the Lakers, but the way they're playing right now, if you have LeBron, Jason, Luka both healthy come playoff time, and the way that they play last Saturday night, you have a closer Luka Doncic. We saw that last year with him leading Dallas to the NBA Finals. The Lakers will definitely be a tough out.
Speaking of Houston, Houston had a tough loss on Saturday against Utah, 124 from 115. Keontae George had a season high 30 points for the Jazz, 141-98. Portland. So if you took the under for Portland, you had a nice showing there. 53 points. They had already suffered 2 losses prior to that by 40 plus points. So they're the first team to have 50-point win in the season while having multiple 40-point losses. You got to go all the way back to the Baltimore Bullets, Sid, back in 1970 and 71. So yeah, going far. But speaking of yesterday's games, tough loss for Knicks in a lot of ways. Speaking of Jason Tatum, he had 25 points as Boston beat the Knicks. Well, Cat had 24, but he got hurt. A couple other guys got hurt as well. And, well, this is the Coach Tibbs experience. I mean, look, that game against the Bulls last week didn't really help them, their cause, because they lost to Cleveland. They got their butts kicked by them by 39 points. That's what the Knicks did. So, yeah, and a lot of exhaustion there. But, yeah, the Knicks are not playing very well at the moment, especially now you got injuries piling up.
I cut away from that game after the first quarter. I knew it was going to get ugly, but we talked about this all year long. Like even throughout the summer after last year's playoffs, we know Tibbs likes to ride his starters into the ground, playing them 38 plus minutes, and you could do that to a certain point, but you got to rest them up and for a potential long playoff run. If this happens again, I'm not saying that Tibbs is going to get fired, because even though he got that contract extension over the summer. This has become a problem with his throughout the years. We saw that in the short time with the Minnesota Timberwolves. Of course, we all know how it ended here in Chicago. It was a friction between him and management. So, regarding playing certain players over their minutes limit. So, it looks like it may happen again with this New York Knicks team. I know Mitchell Robinson hasn't played yet this year. You mentioned Karl-Anthony Towns. I think this is the 3rd or 4th time he's been injured so far this year. So, and there's problems there when your main guy that you trade for over the summer. Now you run him into the ground too. He's hurt. If he's not healthy, you can't go anywhere. We saw the Jalen Brunson experiment last year. He was playing the MVP level until he eventually wore down during that playoff run last year. So you need guys healthy all on deck, because that Eastern Conference, at least the top of it's not getting any easier. So if you're Tom Thibodeau and the rest of the New York Knicks staff, you got to play it careful here.
You listen to Second City Sports and Sports in Chicago. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown with you. Now, another top matchup from that ABC doubleheader yesterday. The Warriors, no trouble with the Mavericks, 126-102. As Steph led the way with 30 points, despite being 3 for 8 from three-point range, not his best showing from three-point range. Jimmy Butler had 18. Draymond had 13. Brady Podzinski had 17 points. So the Warriors are playing pretty well since the Butler trade. So you kind of wonder, like, okay, could they perhaps be a dangerous team coming out of the West, perhaps?
I think they could be a dangerous team. Let's just say the Warriors will finish in that play-in tournament, because let's say they finish 7th in the play-in tournament, and they have to play the 10th seed. Whoever's that 10th seed is going to be in trouble, because all the Warriors have to do is win one game in that play-in tournament. They'll be the 7th seed. I think they'll get Memphis or Houston or heaven forbid the Lakers, they decided to sneak up a couple of spots. So if everything works out right for the Warriors, I'm not saying they're going to come out the West, but wherever they play in the first round, if you're Memphis, Houston, or heaven forbid if you're a Lakers fan, you're in trouble. Especially we all know that Jimmy Butler could turn up at playoff time. I know you hate saying name playoff Jimmy, but he elevates his game to another level. You still have Draymond Green there, as long as he doesn't do anything stupid. And you don't have to rely on Steph Curry to give you a heroic performance just to keep you in the game. So the Warriors are playing well right now. You mentioned with the Jimmy Butler effect. Jimmy Butler is 5-1 since joining the Warriors. The Miami Heat are 1-5 ever since they traded him away. And here's just a couple statistics to point out for the Jimmy Butler effect ever since he was acquired by the Warriors a couple weeks ago. Point differential, ranked number 4 in the NBA. Free throws made, 124. That's first in the NBA. Free throw percentage, 85.5%, second in the NBA. The defensive rating, 104.0, fifth in the NBA. And net rating, plus 15.2. That's fourth in the NBA. All these rankings are since Jimmy Butler was acquired from the Warriors a couple weeks ago. So there's clearly a positive effect that Jimmy Butler has brought to his Warriors team.
We'll see if they can keep it up. Now the Pacers beat the Clippers, the shorthanded Clippers, because there was no Norman Powell, no Kawhi for the Clippers, but Halliburton had 29 points for the Pacers. They've been playing pretty well. They've won 5 of their last 6. Detroit and Atlanta. Now, if you took the over on this one, you had a nice little cafeteria weekend. 148, 143. The Pistons edge out the Atlanta. 38 points for Kate Cunningham. And also 38 points for Trae Young. Now, incidentally, this is going to be interesting. 12 assists for Mr. Cunningham. He was 7 for 10 from 3. 18 assists for Young, and 13 assists, I should say, from Young, and he was 6 for 15 from 3-point range. It's actually the first time that a pair of opposing players in NBA history had 35 plus points, 10 plus assists, and 5 plus 3-pointers made. Incidentally, 5 players actually in total actually had more than 5 threes made, including Malik Beasley, who was 6 for 10 from 3 off the bench. And this is the first time in NBA history that that has happened. Like 5 players from opposing teams, pair of opposing teams had at least 5 hit at least 5 3-pointers. So again, if you took the over on this one, you had a nice Sunday afternoon yesterday. Orlando beat Washington. Toronto beat Phoenix by 18. Milwaukee beat Miami. New Orleans beat San Antonio. Our best wishes to Greg Popovich, who it looks like he's done for the year, and he could retire as well after effects of having a stroke earlier this season. Cleveland held off Memphis, and SGA had 37 points as the Thunder held off the T-Wolves.
Yeah, SGA, aka Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for those of you scoring at home. He's your number 1 contender, in my opinion, for MVP, even over Jokic. I know Jokic is having statistically a great year, but you're not going to give him an MVP this year because even though Denver's back in the top 3 in the Western Conference, he's going to suffer what Michael Jordan suffered back in the day, voters fatigue.
Mm-hmm. And that is a real thing, folks. So we'll see what happens. Going to back to Friday, Golden State beat Sacramento. Speaking of OKC, SGA had 21 as the Thunder beat the Jazz. Houston beat Minnesota. The Mavs beat the Pelicans. Detroit beat San Antonio. Miami over Toronto in overtime. Milwaukee beat Washington. Memphis over Orlando. And like I said, Cleveland just hammered the Knicks on Friday by 39 points.
Yeah, not a good weekend for the Knicks. And Cleveland's for real, folks.
Yes, they are. Going into this week's games, you got the Clippers. They continue their East Coast trip against Detroit. We're going to see how both these teams fare. I'm sure they're going to be exhausted, especially Detroit after their respective games yesterday. Denver hoping to bounce back from the loss to Lakers. They face Indiana. That should be a good one. Bulls and the Sixers. No Embiid though. It looks like they're gonna shut it down because they're still having trouble trying to figure out what to do with that knee of his and that knee injury he's had. He's having.
They'll beat the Bulls though.
Yeah, probably. Brooklyn meets Washington. Miami and Atlanta. The first game of the old NBA TV game. No, I'm not repeating myself. Minnesota, OKC do play each other again, and they're home and home at 7:00. Portland, Utah, and Charlotte and Sacramento.
All right, your schedule for Tuesday looks like this. The Boston Celtics will travel north of the border to Toronto to face the Raptors. The first game of that TNT Tuesday night doubleheader will feature the Cleveland Cavaliers visiting the Orlando Magic. Other games for Tuesday are as follows: Milwaukee visits Houston. That should be a good one. Phoenix will travel to Memphis to take on the Grizzlies. San Antonio and New Orleans will do battle in the Big Easy. Charlotte will continue their West Coast road trip. They'll face the Golden State Warriors in the second half of that TNT doubleheader. Should be a classic, as the Dallas Mavericks will pay a visit to the Lakers to take on Los Angeles. And Anthony Davis, unfortunately, will not be in this one, but this still should be a good contest because Luka Doncic will face his former team for the first time since being acquired by the Lakers a couple weeks ago from Dallas. And that's your schedule for
We'll
Tuesday.
see how that's going to be interesting to see what happens in that game. Definitely going to be glued to that game for sure tomorrow night. Wednesday, hump day. You got Boston and Detroit, Toronto and Indiana. The Knicks and the Six host the Sixers at MSG. That should be interesting. We'll see how shorthanded both teams are. This first game, the ESPN Wednesday doubleheader: Portland and Washington, OKC and Brooklyn, Atlanta and Miami. The Clippers continue their East Coast trip. They face the Bulls at 7. Sacramento and Utah, and the Battle of Texas, although no Wemby, sadly, for this one for San Antonio, as they meet Houston in the second half of that ESPN doubleheader for Wednesday. That's your schedule for Wednesday.
All right, your schedule for Thursday looks like this. The Golden State Warriors will start out their East Coast road trip. They'll pay a visit to Orlando to face the Magic. The lone game for TNT on Thursday, just one game. We'll have Denver at Milwaukee, maybe a possible finals preview. We shall see. Charlotte will continue their West Coast road trip. They'll visit Dallas. New Orleans will visit Phoenix. And the lone NBA TV game, this will be a late one for Thursday. We'll have the Minnesota Timberwolves visiting Los Angeles to take on the Lakers. And that's your schedule for Thursday in this upcoming week in the National Basketball Association.
Should be a good one there with that T-Wolves Lakers matchup. You listen to Second City Sports on Sports. Chicago. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown with you. Got the last few minutes of this hour. We're going to do some college hoops. We'll start at MSG, keeping up with the theme here on Saturday, as Duke just hammered Illinois 110-67. Isaiah Evans had 17 points to lead the way for the Blue Devils. And Illinois, I mean, you can blame that they're shorthanded. I know the flu's been going around over there the last week and a half, 2 weeks, but I mean, Jaka Jonas had 14 points. Trey White had 16, but there's really no excuse for this. I mean, they were only 2 for 26 from 3-point range, 7.7%. Yuck. And Duke's been playing very well. They go to 24-3. Illinois, they fall to 17-11. They're kind of free falling a bit. Probably the worst time to do it too, this late in the season. So, Sid, I know you saw the highlights at the very least. What'd you think?
I saw the first 10 minutes of that game and I cut it off and I went to the Lakers Nuggets game and I was more entertained by that. But it was a men among boys. And I thought Illinois would be a little bit more competitive than that, but it's a worst loss in school history in that program's history. Brett Underwood had some choice words for the team. For his team after the game, I'll just paraphrase it. There's a difference between playing hard and being competitive. He thought that his team wasn't competitive. I also will add too, you got to have talent, and that's something that Illinois doesn't have compared to those schools like Duke, Kansas, North Carolina, and St. John's this year. We'll get to St. John's in just a moment, but you got to have talent if you want to be amongst the elite class of college basketball. Illinois has always been that upper middle tier school throughout their history. But to compete with the Dukes and the Arizonas and the Kansases, you got to have top tier talent. And that's something that they've been struggling with for a long time.
Yikes, it doesn't get any easier for Illinois either, so we'll get to that schedule in a bit here. Auburn held off Georgia. Florida, no trouble with LSU. 96 points for Alabama as they beat Kentucky. Mark Sears had 30 points, a season high for him. This is actually the 8th straight time on the road that they've scored at least 85 points, the longest streak by any D1 team go all the way back to 1995 with George Mason. They also had 8, but the longest one for in season was you got to go way back to 1990-91 UNLV squad with Larry Johnson, Stacey Augmon, and that group. So a nice win for Nate Oates and his guys. Houston held off Iowa State. Tennessee held off Texas A&M. Chas Smear had 30 points there. Texas
This
Tech,
was
no,
Saturday, folks.
yeah, Texas Tech no trouble with West Virginia, and Oregon came back from 12 down to beat Wisconsin. Just when we were actually saying nice things about Wisconsin, they turned around and lose to Oregon. Nate Biddle had 23 points. Go figure.
Yeah, forget about that time zone difference too. Oregon didn't. It didn't
Yeah.
seem to bother them. We talked about USC about a month ago when they beat the University of Illinois in Champaign. The time zone difference didn't bother them. It sure didn't bother Oregon, and they've been quietly been playing very well in the Big Ten.
Especially in recent weeks after they had a tough showing there. Arkansas, much to Sid's chagrin, they beat Mizzou by
Oh,
7.
boo.
Yeah. Clemson and SMU, no trouble there. BYU stole one. I say that I preface that because there was a foul. They called a foul on Arizona's Caleb Love. They got into a little bit of a pushing and shoving. Look, BYU's been playing very well, but they stole that game down there in Arizona. Oklahoma, nice win for Porter Moser and his guys. They beat Mississippi State. And a shout out to our buddy Spiro Dews who had to call this game for CBS. Kansas, the best I've seen Kansas played probably over a month. They had no trouble with Oklahoma State. Husker Davis had 16 points.
Yeah, Bill Self, we talked about it on this show maybe exactly 1 week ago. He had another ugly, bad loss. He called out his team in front of the media. It worked because Kansas has been playing better ball. Now, are they still a national championship contender? We'll see about that. But since Mick Cronin did the same thing with UCLA, I know we're going to talk about that coming up. His team's been playing very well as well in the Big Ten. But Bill Self, he knows what he's doing, and Kansas, his players responded.
Yes, they did. So we'll see if they can. This is going to start a little bit of a run for them. Vanderbilt put together a nice little resume for the tournament. They beat Ole Miss, Louisville, and Florida. No trouble. Well, they had a little trouble for us, but they held them off. They're trying to see is there any other local action. Eastern Illinois beat Morehead State. This is Ohio Valley Conference play, folks. Little Rock beat Western Illinois. Eastern Michigan beat Northern Illinois in MAC action, as they say. And Bradley got a big win in overtime. They beat Murray State to stay within distance with Drake and Northern Iowa in the Missouri Valley.
And speaking of Missouri Valley Conference, shout out our guy Jay Hood, ESPN 1000 Chicago, and the voice of UIC Flames basketball and baseball. UIC got a big 5-point win last Saturday against Evansville, 82-77.
Yes, they did. Valpo beat Southern Illinois, keep them over with the Missouri Valley Conference theme. Boise State, no trouble. They edged out Nevada. They needed that win to try to maybe perhaps get their drivers for the for its only tournament bid. Utah State beat San Diego State there. Illinois State edged out Missouri State. And DePaul hung there with Butler for a little bit, but they pulled away late. South Carolina beat Texas. St. Mary's beats Gonzaga. Let's see here. And going to Sunday's matchup. Now, speaking of St. John's, since we're going to talk about the theme here, this is from yesterday. St. John's, they pulled away from Connecticut by 14. Zuby Ejiofor had 18 points. This is actually they're 20-4. I'm talking about St. John's. Last time they were 24-4. Last time they were 20 games over 500. Yeah, all the way back to the Mark Jackson days, all the way back in 85, 86. So look, Rick Pitino's guys playing very well, and if they we'll talk about their schedule coming up in a little bit here, but they can clutch a share of the Big East title for the first time. I think since like the late 90s, early 2000s. So yeah, this is
that was when Artest is with them. Yeah, now Metal World Peace.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And this is all the way back. Look, they've had their they've kind of been dormant the last 25 years. If you think about it, they had their moments with Mike Jarvis, of course, who coached Ron Artest during that time. They actually were just like a game away from going to the Final Four, I believe. They basically those teams. Then of course, Steve Lavin did what he could, but I think other circumstances had they injuries and such, they probably could have went to a nice deep run. Chris Mullen, I feel like he could have he should have had a little bit more time there, but I digress. Mike Anderson, as great as a coach as he is, he was kind of a placeholder. But Rick Pitino coming back, this is around. Look, he played against these guys, when he was at Providence, so he knows what it takes to recruit, there. But he's got those guys playing very well right now. They could be a sleeper pick, perhaps maybe to go to the Final Four in San Antonio.
Yeah, and he got some of those area kids to commit to his program as well. So the New York City's right behind him. They're winning. So they have it going on right now with all the momentum in the world. But like you said, we'll see what they're made of come March Madness time.
Indiana, they're trying to get a little bit going here, perhaps getting themselves on the bubble, press playing more for Mike Wisden as well. They upset Purdue. Malik Renault had 15 points, and we're just to see if they can kind of get it going as of late. We'll see. Memphis was a nice win over FAU, and let's see here. Xavier beat Seton Hall, and UCLA, they held off Ohio State. Eric Daly Jr. had 20 points. They're starting to get it put together a little bit. And UCF, they beat Utah, Arizona State, and beat K State. Drake beat UNI in overtime, so that means that Drake now is in the driver's seat for the Missouri Conference regular season title. Creighton beat Georgetown, and Rutgers, by Dylan Harper's 25, they beat USC.
All right, let's take a look at the schedule quickly for college basketball for this week. Starting tonight at 6 p.m. on ESPN, we have North Carolina versus Florida State. North Carolina 17-11. 16-11 is the Florida State Seminoles. North Carolina trying to put on a little bit of a run here before the ACC tournament in a couple of weeks. So a big game for both teams there. Also, too, we'll have tonight at 8 p.m. on ESPN, if I can get my schedule up here. Kansas will pay a visit to Colorado to take on the Buffaloes. We mentioned Kansas has been on a roll here almost over the last week. Another big game for the Jayhawks on the road.
And also, Tuesday in the Big 12, we got Houston and Texas Tech at 8 o'clock on ESPN. And Michigan hoping to bounce back from a loss to Michigan State. They will be going down to Pinnacle Bank Arena in Lincoln as they face Fred Hoiberg's Nebraska squad. That's at 7 o'clock on FS1.
All right. Tomorrow, Tuesday, Iowa will travel to Champaign to take on the Fighting Illini. That's at 8 p.m. on FS1. I think Illinois should win this game. Should. I'm putting in the air quotes here, given the way they've been playing lately. The Washington Huskies, they'll travel to the Midwest to take on number 11 ranked Wisconsin Badgers. That will be at 8 p.m. on Peacock. South Carolina will face number 14 Missouri. That's on ESPNU. And also, to the battle of the Illinois State teams. Southern Illinois will host Illinois State. That's at 7 o'clock on ESPN Plus. And another highlighted game here, 6 p.m. on Peacock. Both 14 and 13 teams in the Big Ten as Northwestern will travel to Minnesota to take on the Golden Gophers.
Yeah, Northwestern really needs to keep winning, stay out of that bottom three tier in the Big Ten, because remember, the bottom three teams don't go to the Big Ten tournament. So Northwestern needs all the wins they can get. Duke and Miami at 6 on ESPN. Florida and Georgia. No, this is not the cocktail party game. This is going to be at 6 o'clock on SEC Network. FS1, you got Marquette hosting Providence. Oklahoma State, they host Iowa State. Tennessee and LSU. That's going to be 8 o'clock on the SEC Network. ESPN2, you'll have Mississippi State and Alabama. That should be a fun one. Gonzaga trying to keep their NCAA hopes alive as they face Santa Clara on CBS Sports Network at 10. And New Mexico and San Diego State at FS1 at 10 o'clock. That should be a fun one there as well. And that's your schedule for Wednesday.
Yeah. Sticking with Wednesday, Auburn and Ole Miss. Yeah, Auburn and Ole Miss for Wednesday, 6 o'clock on ESPN2. At FS1 at 5:30, Georgetown will face UConn. Big game for both teams there, especially for UConn after losing to St. John's yesterday. Looking at the rest of the schedule for Wednesday, UIC, shout out Jay Hood and Say Travels. They'll face Northern Iowa on Wednesday. That's at 6 p.m. on ESPN Plus. And we'll have my guy, Penny Hardaway, number 18 ranked Memphis Tigers, and Dane Danger, the former Illini standout. They'll host the University of Rice. That's at 7 o'clock on ESPN Plus for Wednesday.
St. John's and Butler at 8 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. If they win this game, St. John's, like I said, will get a share of the Big East title. We'll see what happens there. Kentucky hoping to bounce back from that loss to Alabama. They will face Oklahoma at 8 o'clock on SEC Network. Utah and Arizona. That's going to be 8 o'clock on ESPN Plus. BYU, number 25. They're back in the top 25 for the first time in about a decade. They face Arizona State on ESPN Plus. DePaul and Creighton will be at 8 o'clock on Peacock. Utah State and Boise State, that should be a fun one on FS1. Ohio State and USC on the Big Ten Network. SMU and Cal at 10 p.m. on ESPNU. And San Francisco and Oregon State at 10 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. That's good for Wednesday.
In the highlight game for Thursday, this will be on Peacock at 8 o'clock. We'll have Rutgers traveling the state of Michigan is the 15th ranked Michigan Wolverines. They'll do battle. Michigan checks in at 20-6. We talked about Purdue, which had this is having their slide right now. Michigan State and Tom Izzo has that program at the top of the Big Ten conference, but the Michigan Wolverines, they're going to try to make a statement on Thursdays that hosts Rutgers. Rutgers, even though they're 14-14, they could be a sneaky team. So if you're Michigan, do not overlook these guys.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll see what happens there. Number 23, St. Mary's. They're back in the top 25. First time this year. They face Loyola Marymount at 10 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. You got Cal Poly and UC Santa Barbara. These are all Big West matchups out there out west. UC Irvine and Cal State Fullerton. Those are your top four teams. You might see one of these four teams in the Big Dance, so make sure you might want to get to know them a little bit better. Both of those games are at 9 o'clock on ESPN Plus, and that is your schedule for this week in men's college hoops.
Hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 straight ahead. You're listening to Second City Sports on Monday edition, live in the Living Color on Sports Zone Chicago. The NFL Combine is underway in Indianapolis. Has Bears GM Ryan Pauls, they have in his scouting department have a lot of work to do. We'll tell you some of the plays they should be looking at for this upcoming week. We'll continue part 2 of our breakdown of Pete Prisco's top 100 NFL free agent list with CBSSports.com. We have baseball to get to as spring training is underway, and we have 2 tributes to broadcaster and singing icons. And to wrap it up, we'll have Old School TV Monday saluting Black TV sitcoms. That is a whole lot more as you stick and stay right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
No, I don't know though. I'm scared. I mean, you're
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it! Yes, sir!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Chicago, along with Miss Lakita McGee. which is she. I ain't City Brand. You better know that this is me. You can follow your Shirley on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow my Kingdom again on the Twitter, X, and IG.
If you have any questions or comments for us as we kick off our number 2 discussing the NFL and the Chicago Bears, you can hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section of the keynote. Get the up on the screen for you.
Maybe talk about this a little bit on Friday, Sid, but Bears made it official. They've released veterans of Marcus Walker and Gerald Everett to free cap space. They now have just a little over $80 million in cap space. So, Sid will said, something that the Bears could be targeting. So we'll see what happens with that now. The Panthers, of course, they made some news earlier this morning. They announced that they're not going to release a veteran linebacker, Shaq Thompson. He's been to about 4 Pro Bowls. I think he was an All-Pro as well. He's one of the actually lone holdover from that 2015 Super Bowl squad. Of course, that team lost to Peyton Manning and Denver Broncos in that Super Bowl. So, but yeah, injuries have kind of played in the last couple of years. So, I don't know if you're a Bears fan, do you want to kind of pursue him? But I'm sure he's going to get some teams are going to be looking for him. So, we'll see what happens there. Matt Stafford, trade value. Among some of the teams that they're targeting Mr. Stafford, you got the Raiders, the Browns, and the Steelers. So, yeah, Sid. Yeah, that's interesting. So, Sid, what do you think of all this NFL news that came out over the weekend?
I think you can cross out Cleveland because they're in a total rebuild there, and we'll see what value they can get if they can get any for Myles Garrett because he asked for a trade request following the Super Bowl. The Raiders are very interesting only because you have new head coach Pete Carroll. Of course, you got Tom Brady, current Fox commentator, but he has a small ownership stake within the team, but it looks like he wants to have the loudest voice in there thanks to current owner Mark Davis, the son of the late great Al Davis, is like dad. So I think Stafford is a realistic possibility for the Raiders. What would the Raiders give up to get Matthew Stafford? We don't know, but I don't think it will be too much. So the Raiders could be a possibility. What was that 13? Pittsburgh, you said?
Yes.
Pittsburgh?
Yep.
In the football logical sense, that would make sense. But if you Matthew Stafford, will you want to play half your schedule outside? He doesn't have to do that right now for the Rams. He only plays 8 or 9 games, home games inside. So football, it will make a whole lot of sense, but he'll have to go through the gauntlet of the AFC North. And I don't know if he wants to uproot his family, go cross country at this stage of his career. Football-wise, it makes sense for Pittsburgh, but I don't know if he wants to uproot his family to go play for Mike Tomlin for 2 years. Unless he changes his mind and say, yes, let's make this happen. I don't see him doing it.
And also, too, I forgot there was a 4th team. It's actually the Giants. Now, I guess that was more on my part on purpose because you've got the Washington Commanders, an up-and-coming squad, made it all the way to the NFC title game. You're going to be facing also Dallas. We'll see where Dallas is with their new head coach, Brian Schottenheimer. Oh, yeah, by the way, you got the reigning Super Bowl champs in Philadelphia. So if you're Stafford, do you really want to go to, again, you're going, that's even further than Cleveland and Pittsburgh. That's even further than Pittsburgh. So, yeah, I don't know about the Giants, but no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I said it before. The New York Giants, they're not a quarterback away. They still rebuild it. I know they have Malik Neighbors, a stud wide receiver who had a good year despite playing with 3-4 different quarterbacks. Their defense was not anything to write home about last year. And they have a lot of restructuring to do both on their offensive and defensive line. So if you're Matthew Stafford, okay, the Giants would improve in the quarterback room, but you still need more weapons to have about Malik Neighbors. You still need to start running back in. You need to rebuild that defensive line. So the Giants are miles away. It would not make sense for Stafford to go play for the Giants. I wouldn't do it.
Nah, well, and I think out of these 4 teams that I mentioned, you probably say the Steelers are probably the closest. But again, you're going to be in a very tough AFC North. You've got Baltimore, and we'll see what Cincy does with some of their up-and-coming free agents. And of course, yeah, it's going to be interesting, like in that division. So I think out of those, if you want to take pros and cons of all four of these teams that may have shown interest, if you will. None of them really sound good. I mean, Oakland, you're going to be dealing with the Chargers, the Chiefs, and the Broncos. All three, made the playoffs last year. So I'm trying to figure out, like, wait, what? That doesn't. None of this really makes sense if you're Stafford. You want to go someplace where you have a chance to win. And look, I know that the Rams want to try and see if they can get value for him, but none of these four teams, if you're Stafford, none of these four teams are exciting. That's just me.
I said from a geographical sense, and maybe for a football sense, as if he wants to stay quote unquote close to home, they'll be the Raiders. But if you want to travel cross country to have an ugly ending of your career, you go to the Giants. I don't see him doing that. Pittsburgh makes, as I said, makes the most football logical sense, but I don't see him doing that either. So I think his best option is to stay with the Rams. So let's not forget they're one drive away from eliminating Philadelphia in the snow in last year's playoffs. So does this mean that the Rams are actually that close? It may not be, but they were right there with Philadelphia last year in that divisional playoff game. So the Rams are not that far away. You saw what kind of defense they had. They grew as the year went on. And if Stafford gets the protection, his best chance is really to stay with the Rams.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think just get a couple of I don't know. I gotta look up where their salary cap situation. Talking about the Rams, but yeah, I think if you're Stafford, you want to try to run it back again one more time with the Rams. You were, like you said, they were right there with Philadelphia. You probably say they probably should have won that game in the divisional round. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to see how all this sort of plays out. But like I said, give more protection for Stafford, and you're probably just better off just letting him stay with y'all. But we'll see.
All right, and let's transition over to the NFL Combine, which starts today in Indianapolis, Indiana, in Lucas Oil Stadium. The NFL Network will start their coverage, I believe, on Thursday. Of course, the Bears have all their scouting personnel down there representing the monsters of the Midway, including GM Ryan Poles. And, of course, looking at the two biggest positions that the Bears are looking to upgrade is the defensive line department, in particular an edge rusher. And, of course, the number one problem with the Bears for the last, I don't know how many years, is the offensive line. Of course, the names to look at for Chicago: Will Campbell, the tackle out of LSU. He'll probably be gone by the time the Bears select at number 9. You have Joshua Simmons, the tackle out of Ohio State. Kelvin Banks Jr., he's also a tackle out of Texas. I really like him a lot. You have Donovan Jackson, a guard out of Ohio State. I like him second. Tyler Booker, also a guard out of Alabama. I like him third. And, of course, Armand Membo out of Missouri. He's also a guard out of Missouri. So the Bears will have plenty to choose from if they select offensive lineman at number 9.
Yeah, and I think they'll have their like you said. I mean, a lot of teams ahead of them probably also need O-line help in some form. So it'll be interesting to see like what the Bears are going to do. Like, do you look? We'll see how big of a voice that new coach Ben Johnson has in the room, because I kind of feel like we've seen the last couple years where Poles, his drafting record has not been very good for the most part. So I kind of feel like if you're Ben Johnson, especially if you're looking for O-line help, with the names that you mentioned, it'll be interesting to see, like, okay, how many, like, who are you looking for? Do you go guard with Jackson? Do you go tackle with Banks Jr.? Or Will Campbell? Also Josh Simmons is another name, floating around as well. There are like a lot of guys to choose from. I think the question is going to be like, make sure you find the right one. So, if they do decide to, like I said, if some of these guys are going to be gone by the time the Bears are going to pick, I mean, that's going to be another thing. So we'll see, but it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah, like I said, Will Campbell may be gone by the time the Bears have their selection at number 9. The other 4 names I just mentioned, they could be available, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Bears selected any of these 4 players. Me personally, like I said, I like Donovan Jackson out of Ohio State. I really like Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas, so you couldn't go wrong with either of those guys at number 9. But it all depends on what the Bears do in free agency first, which starts the new league year on March the 12th. So I think that the Bears will select a veteran offensive lineman or 2 in free agency. I know they're rumored to be in for Trey Smith at Kansas City if the Chiefs don't slap the franchise tag on them. So, yeah, I think if you don't Bears don't get Mr. Smith from Kansas City, I think you'll select one of these type guys outside of Will Campbell in that draft coming up in late April.
Now, another thing is probably perhaps maybe getting an edge rusher, perhaps. And if you're the Bears, I know Abdul Carter, but you got the rumors that he might go number one, so he's out. Michael Williams from Georgia. Well, Carter's from Penn State, by the way. Michael Williams from Georgia. That might be another name that might be floating around as well. James Pierce Jr. from Tennessee. Donovan Edwards from Boston College, one of the few bright spots from Boston College last season for them. So yeah, Josiah Stewart from Michigan. I mean, look, you got your choice of edge rushers as well, so it'll be interesting to see what route they go to. Now, some of these guys you could probably say they'll probably still be around in the second round or the third round. So you gotta think, okay, if you're polls, you might wait on getting an edge rusher. But I feel like if that's going to be your top priority, like I said, it's really all going to depend on if you can, what they do, if they can get one through free agency. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this. But yeah, but I think the thing is that do I trust polls to make the right decision on some of this stuff right now, as I've seen so far? Not really.
Yeah, we know that Ben Johnson is safe for at least for the next 2 or 3 years. We know that Ryan Poles isn't safe, just like his counterpart in baseball with Jay Horry with the Cubs. We'll talk about them after the break. His job is on the line. So you mentioned these moves got to be calculated what new head coach Ben Johnson wants. And as I talked about before on the show, Ben Johnson has seen the film from all 17 games from the Bears last year. He knows what he wants. He knows what the problems are. Let's work together to see if we could build this thing. Now with that offensive line for the Bears, Coleman Shelton may be on, or Ryan Bates may be on the cut block. We'll see. But I think you can go get a center for agency. What I think is going to happen, like I said, things could change between now and March 12th. But my prediction is I think the Bears will probably go get a center or a backup guard in free agency if they cannot get Trey Smith from Kansas City. I think they'll go get a center or go get a guard and then draft one of these top 5 linemen outside of Will Campbell in the draft with that first round pick. You mentioned with the edge rushers. I think the Bears have, 2 second round picks. If I'm not mistaken, you could correct me on that. And if that's the case, you could definitely get your edge rusher with one of those second round picks. Because I know they had 3 in the top 50, so I think I kind of just answered my own question. So they have 2 second round picks. You definitely get your a top 3 edge rusher with one of those second round picks.
Let me look that up real quick for the Bears. I mean, but again, I don't trust Poles. Look, so far, I trust Poles has not given me a reason to trust him with all this. So you're gonna have. I'm in Missouri right now. You're gonna have to actually show me that he can do this, because right now he has not shown me that he can. So I kind of feel like if you're Poles, like, unless he tries to pull off a trade, because that's going to be interesting too. But yeah, I mean, they can do a lot with that. But like I said, do you trust him to do that? So I know they got 2 7-rounders as well, as long as they don't pick a kicker, I guess. But it's gonna be interesting to see what happens here. But yeah, I'm kind of in show me. I'm kind of in show me mode as far as the Bears are concerned with this NFL draft. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's a fair criticism because, like you said, Lakina, I think he got that pick right with Durner right a couple years ago, and some of the other lower level picks just hasn't worked out. So he's under the gun right now, and like you said, the pressure should be on him. He feels it, and hopefully he could deliver. But whoever the Bears pick with their first pick through their last picks they have in this upcoming draft, they need to be difference makers right now.
All right, you can catch the coverage on NFL Combine starting Tuesday. Wait, yeah, Tuesday. No, Thursday. Right? No, Thursday on NFL Network. Of course, they'll have coverage all throughout the weekend. So I'm sure Rich Eisen will probably be doing his annual combine drills, I guess. So we'll see what happens with that. So if you're a combine geek, this is definitely a week for you. So enjoy the combine down there. We got a lot of our friends who will cover the Bears are going to be down there too, doing that. So we'll see. But yeah, catch the combine coverage all week long on the NFL Network.
I know our guy and our colleague Kenneth Davis from War Media. He's usually up on these things. I call him the resident GM. I know he's going to be paying attention to it as well. You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid McKinney here with you as we stick and stay with the NFL talk. Here's our version of part two of the top NFL 100 NFL free agents according to Pete Prisco of CBSSports.com. We left off with Trey Greenlaw last Friday. A couple other names that stuck out to me. We won't go through the whole list, but a couple names that stuck out to me. Kevin Zettler, the offensive guard for the Detroit Lions. He's at age 34. I think that he's physical. He's a power player who excels in the running game. We all know that the Bears have an element of the running game due to the weather conditions here in Chicago. I don't think he could be a nice sneaky option for the Bears. Even though he's at age 34, you could sign him to a 1 and 2 year deal, and he could be a good fit for that Bears offensive line because they have to be physical up front, not just for running the ball, but to protect Caleb Williams as well.
Yeah, that's going to be the thing here. I know Zeckler's been named to float around as well because he knows, Ben Johnson's system pretty well. So yeah, could he be perhaps maybe a guy that goes to, Chicago from Detroit? So let me just see what happens with that. I mean, look, I think he might be, but I think other teams will probably be, vying for his services. It'll be interesting to see, but yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to be a name that's going to be something to look out for, especially once free agency officially starts.
Ryan Kelly, center for the Indianapolis Colts, the 2016 first-round pick, with the career starts of 121. He turns 32 in May, but was limited just to 10 games last season due to injuries. But this could be another sneaky play for Chicago as well as they try to rebuild that offensive.
Could be interesting to see, but I think with everything else, I know they said they got 80 million in cap room, but like I said, you're not gonna, you're never gonna know how these guys are, the market's gonna be like for these folks. So it's gonna be like I said, you don't know what they're gonna be asking for, and if Pole's gonna be willing to pay that money. So it's gonna be interesting to see how all this goes. But yeah, I think 80 million in cap space, that doesn't mean that Pole's gonna spend all that. So I think Bears fans need to kind of just put the brakes on some of this stuff, but definitely, you got two very well worthy O-line free agents that the Bears desperately need.
Let's go to defensive end / edge rushers. DeMarcus Lawrence of Dallas. He's at age 34. He was limited just to 4 games last year after suffering a foot injury. And Chase Young, he was with San Francisco a couple years ago on their championship team, NFC championship team before losing to Kansas City in the Super Bowl. He was with New Orleans this year. But Chase Young, he's never lived up to the hype. He still has a very strong motor, but I think DeMarcus Lawrence for the Bears, I would say no because he's older. But Chase Young, maybe you can get something out of him. I know he played with Montez Sweat, who's now a member of the Bears. Is Chase Young a realistic possibility? Maybe, but at the end of the day, I would say no.
Yeah, I don't think he's worth the risk. I mean, he could be if he's willing to sign perhaps maybe a 1 year deal with a lot of incentives. But yeah, if he's thinking about getting that big money, he's not gonna get it from the Bears or for anybody. So I forgot he was with the Saints last year because I didn't see him very much. So go figure with that one. Go figure with that one. But yeah, I don't think he's probably not gonna be getting a lot of offers, I guess, for many of the teams.
Now, this is probably a no for me as well. He's at age 31. He was with the Philadelphia Eagles a couple years ago. He played with the Jets last year. He was a holdout throughout most of training camp. Hassan Reddick.
I mean, he was with Baltimore for many years. Injuries have been a problem for him as well. So I don't know if he might command a lot of money, but I don't know if you're going to be pay that much for him. I don't think the Bears are going to do that. So yeah, he might. Yeah, I don't think he'd be a good fit for the Bears anyway. So, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, Zach Martin's on this list, but I don't think that's a strong possibility. Outside linebacker Dante Fowler of the Washington Commanders.
A veteran name, but I think I've heard him say he's going to stay with Washington. So we'll see what happens with that. I mean, he's been around for a long time, and he actually hasn't had a lot of injuries for the most part. So yeah, could be the name perhaps, but maybe. Like I said, it's going to depend on what they're asking, what he's going to ask for.
Here's an interesting name. As we go into the Bears secondary. I know Jaquan Brisker missed the majority of the season due to issues with the concussion. And I know Kevin Byard, who the Bears signed last offseason from the Tennessee Titans, he may once again may be a cap casualty. But Harrison Smith of the Minnesota Vikings.
Like I said, he knows the division very well, so it could be a name that perhaps, maybe, like I said, it's really going to depend on how much he's going to be asking for.
All right, and Tyron Smith of the New York Jets, he's 34. I think the Bears should pass up on him. Of course, Coleman Shelton is on this list. You may say goodbye to him, but here's another interesting name at number 100, Will Hernandez, a guard from the Arizona Cardinals. He's coming off a knee surgery that ended his season in week 5, but he is a good run blocker who can move people. He's only 30 years old, so age is a factor, but I guess see the Bears maybe taking a chance on him if all the other options are out as far as free agents are concerned. But I think the Bears should take a look at him.
Could be a sleeper. Like I said, I think he was playing really well for the Cardinals last year before he got hurt. So it could be perhaps maybe a sleeper pick for the Bears. We'll see. But yeah, it should be interesting. But yeah, I'm kind of let's say like I said, I like him. Like I said, I don't know if he fits Dennis Allen's scheme, new DC Dennis Allen's scheme, but it could be a name, perhaps. Could be a sleeper signing for the Bears if they, if the other guys don't pan out.
And one more note about the NFL Combine for this year, 2025. Shedeur Sanders, the projected number 1 pick, or at least a number 1 quarterback taken out of the University of Colorado, he will not, I repeat, will not throw in the Combine, but he'll do your standard interviews along with Travis Hunter. I'm assuming they're going to have their own pro days when those teams visit the University of Colorado campus.
Yeah, because a lot of schools have their own combine, so you may see some of that. Ashton Genty also, the running back for Boise State. I mean, he already said he's gonna do the interview portion, just not the drill portion. So yeah, I think might be better. It all depends on the player. So yeah, so you'll still see some of the top players, but yeah, I can see why some of the others are saying, nah, you know what, I'll wait for the school for the combines at the respective schools.
Yeah, like you said, those schools and the players control that anyway, so they use it to their advantage to control the message and the workouts to their own liking.
All right, so we're gonna take a really quick break, of course. More fun coming up. Of course, we'll talk a little bit of baseball and some hockey as well. We'll do a little bit of that hockey as Alex Ovechkin gets closer and closer to tying one of the top marks in the NHL. And in sports media news, we dedicate to a couple of legends we lost earlier this morning, and of course we honor a legendary show for as we wrap up honoring Black sitcoms for today's edition of Old School TV Monday. That and a whole lot more coming next. Kingdom McGee, Cindy Brown, Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. We do a little hot pottage rapid fire coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I needed for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks? They can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Welcome back to Second City Sports, the Monday edition. You're locked and loaded, and we're live in the living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago. I'm Sid, that's Lakina. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You follow my Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, and the IG.
This is our last break of the show for today. So if you have any last minute questions or comments, you can hit us up at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comment section. Lakino, get up on the screen for you.
Off to Diamond, as spring training is one away in both Florida and Arizona. On Saturday, the Cubs got the best of the White Sox 7-3. Cubs actually came back from 5-0 down against Texas. They came back and won that matchup in Arizona yesterday. And meanwhile, the White Sox, if my computer will cooperate here, they lose to Royals 4-3 yesterday in Cactus League play.
Yeah, Colson Montgomery looked good on Saturday, hitting his first home run of the spring on Saturday. Jerry Schuster, the starting pitcher for the White Sox, had a bad second inning, giving up 5 runs there. But for the White Sox, as I said before, the guys that are expected to make this team, I want them to play fundamentally sound baseball, be smart out there, and just make the road team play. And one of the other things I worry about for the White Sox, and it's going to come up a bunch of times throughout this year, hopefully they'll have some semblance of this group, is the bullpen. They didn't have much of it last year. I'm not seeing any good signs of it this year. I know we're only 2 games in to spring training, but I want to see what kind of a bullpen they're going to have. The lineup I know they threw out there on Saturday wasn't as conducive as what we're going to see in the regular season, but this team needs to produce some runs. In particular, we talked about Luis Robert Jr. perhaps putting up his trade value, getting his numbers up so he can get up out of here, according to Chris Getz, by the July 31st trade deadline. Another player that we didn't talk about before that he needs to have a good year, he could be a trade piece, not now, but come July 31st, is Andrew Vaughn. He's mildly has struggled the last couple of seasons, and so that's another player that needs to have a bounce back year.
Yeah, definitely, and especially I'm sure Get's going to want to trade him before the trade deadline. So yeah, he could be another piece, and of course he really needs to avoid any serious injuries. So we'll see. Yeah, so we'll see what happens with them, and just a really interesting first couple of days for the White Sox in the Cactus League play. Now, as far as the Cubs are concerned, I mean, it's been mostly their young guys have kind of stepped up a little bit. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. Especially it's gonna get a little bit interesting because I think if you're the Cubs, I know Jonathan Long had a couple of RBIs this weekend. Of course, he led that great comeback for the Cubs over the Rangers. For me, it's going to be interesting to see what does all this mean. I mean, if you're the Cubs, you want to get into a quick start right away to kind of avoid, because you did it last year, but again, you kind of fell off a little bit. by May, and you got yourself into a bit of a hole. You couldn't get out of it. So if you're the Cubs, the key is really going to be just making sure that guys like Swanson, you got Tucker. I'm sure he's going to want a big contract next season, so I'm sure he's going to want to play well. PCA Pico Armstrong is going to have a nice year for the Cubs as well. I know he had 3 hits in that game yesterday against Texas. So I think if you're the Cubs, you want to try to get guys like Suzuki and Tucker and Happ. Make sure get those guys going, and hopefully the pitcher can kind of keep everything afloat until Horror is able to make another move for the trade deadline.
And speaking of the pitcher, even though it was 2 minutes, 2 innings of work on Saturday, Justice still did look good. As I said before, when he's healthy, he's one of the best young left-handers in baseball. He looked good, even though it was against a backup White Sox team minus Luis Robert Jr. He looked very good yesterday. You mentioned the pitching not so great, but the offense did pick up the team. The lineup that you saw yesterday is going to be the resemblance, close to a resemblance of what you're going to see this year. And the question is, who's going to be the Cubs leadoff hitter? I don't think it's going to be Pico Armstrong. As I said last year, I thought he should have been that guy, but it looks like current counsel will be going in a different direction. Kyle Tucker, even though he did not get a hit yesterday, he looked pretty good in a couple of at-bats. He had a fly out. One of them was almost went out the park, but hitters usually get things going in spring training. They're usually ahead of the pitchers, so we'll see what happens with that. But you mentioned, Lakina, this offense has to be consistent, and when they're struggling, they got to be creative, something they weren't doing on a whole lot of bases last year.
Yeah, it was really the pitching was really what kind of kept them in it. The other offense, they had their issues. So we'll see. It's gonna be interesting to see, especially as we close and close to their season opener in Japan against the Dodgers. That's gonna be interesting to see what that's. I think that's not gonna be a litmus test, but it's gonna be close to it. So we'll see what happens. There now, both Juan Soto and Alex Bregman homered for their respective new teams. Of course, Soto hit a home run on Saturday, and Bregman hit his season debut with the Red Sox. So yeah, we'll see how those two guys fare. Unfortunately, Giancarlo Stanton from the Yankees is now getting some tests done. So not what you want to see for the Yankees, especially this early in spring training. So you hope that this isn't going to be a theme here for the rest of the season. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, you're always going to have injuries, and the question is, do you have capable guys that are backups that come in and do the job, not to get too high, get too low, not to outperform themselves, but can they come in there and be solid? And this is where your scouting department and your GM, you hope they've done a good job. We always talk about those teams like the Dodgers, the Braves, who I think they'll be back this year because most of their core guys will be healthy, but you talk about those teams like the Braves, the Mets, the Dodgers, and the Yankees to a lesser extent. They always have guys, backup guys that are solid, ready to plug in if one of their superstars go down. We all know you cannot really replace superstars, but you have adequate guys that come in and they fill in and do a job for a short term. I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully this isn't a long-term thing. That maybe it's just workouts. Because listen, you guys, you can stay in shape, but look, you're getting into the grind of baseball, and sometimes it just sometimes your body, especially if you're getting older, your body doesn't want to cooperate too much. So we'll see if it's just nothing serious with Mr. Stanton there. A-Rod, actually, if you saw the game yesterday, the Bucknell game yesterday, he actually has synced a half-court shot to win a Bucknell student $10,000. I mean, that's a bargain nowadays, especially if you're in college. So yeah, so good for him. But any other baseball nuggets and news before we move on?
Spring training is underway, which means that we're not too far away from seeing springtime like weather here in Chicago, and I cannot wait for that. I know we're gonna get a taste of it this week, a little taste, which I'm all happy for. But as far as the Cubs, as we talked about, and we'll talk about it 1,000 more times on this program, expectations are upon them. They could be one of those teams that could turn around last year for not making the playoffs, so making the playoffs for the White Sox is all about development and progression at this point.
You listen to Second City Sports on Sports Chicago. Lakina McGee, City Brown with you. Let's do that hockey. So this is the time here where we're going to be talking a little bit more hockey. And
do we have to?
Well, I mean, outside of the Blackhawks. Well, outside the Blackhawks, the only Blackhawks thing is that apparently the Winnipeg Jets apparently they want Seth Jones. Well, I mean, look, y'all could look if you look, give us something, give them something, and I'm sure Kyle Davidson will just say, "Hey, give me your best offer." So, I know they lost to the Maple Leafs yesterday, so yuck that, but yeah, that was not a good showing for the Blackhawks. I think the season's over with too. I think that's another thing. But the good hockey, the Capitals beat the Oilers. But the bigger news here is Alex Ovechkin had a hat trick, his 18th career hat trick, and he's now 13 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's goals record mark. So guys, 88th, 80, 181st, and 182nd. Of course, as you guys know, Wayne Gretzky had 894 goals all time. That's still probably one of the bigger records in NHL history. And now, 13, from breaking the record, Mr. Ovechkin.
Yeah, it's amazing. Even though he's been going through a couple of things in terms of injuries, I think believe he lost his father last year, so he's been going through some stuff here lately the last 2 or 3 years. But it is amazing what he could do at his age. Now he has gray hair, makes us look old. So, but it's amazing what he's been doing at his age. And we're talking about a goal number 900 is one of those hollow records in not only hockey but in all sports. Remember, Lakina, back in 1998, we thought that 62 was a hollow record that'll never be broken. We saw Mark McGuire do that with 70 home runs. Of course, Barry Bonds came back a few years later with 72. You can go say what you want about that, but it is officially a record. But the way that Alexander Ovechkin has been consistent throughout all these years through the bumps and the bruises. Yes, he has only had one Stanley Cup championship, but his resume, it fills up the room. And next to Wayne Gretzky, he could arguably be the greatest hockey player that we ever seen.
Yeah,
And he's gonna be out there by the time his career is done.
Yeah, and so seeing him with gray hair now that makes us feel old, especially. But the good thing is that, and also too, even better, the Capitals have the best record in the NHL at the moment. They got 84 points. They've won
Who'd have
38
thunk
games.
it?
I don't think anybody had that early this early in the season. So, but look, they're getting It's not just Ovi. I mean, look, they've getting contributions from a lot of guys on that squad. So, I think this could be a team to look out for. As we get closer and closer to the end of the season. But yeah, I mean, Jacob Chikchurn is another guy that's been playing very well. I think he's like right there behind Ov, leading in scoring. So, I think look, I'm not gonna sit here and say that the Capitals are gonna win the Stanley Cup, but they're definitely gonna be a tough out. So we'll see if they can keep it up.
As we all know, during the Stanley Cup playoffs, you need great goaltending and timely scoring. And with that Eastern Conference, the way that it's stacked is definitely not going to be easy. You still have to consider the Florida Panthers, the Boston Bruins. Look out for the New Jersey Devils. And if the New York Strangers, as I call them as of right now, the New York Rangers ever could turn it around, if they get in, they can cause damage too. So it's going to be a stacked top of the Eastern Conference. So, like you say, it's not going to be easy. So they better be ready.
Well, on the Western Conference side, of course, the Winnipeg Jets are the leaders there in that conference. You got Dallas. Dallas is right there. Minnesota, you know how I like that Minnesota squad. Vegas, Edmonton. I know they beat Edmonton. I'm talking about Washington yesterday, but the Oilers are still going to be a force to be reckoned with. So yeah, there's still a lot to be decided. That Western Conference was very outside the Jets. It's still pretty jam packed.
Yeah, the Jets are having a great year, but I still believe that Western Conference is wide open. We'll see how Connor McDavid responds after being heat checked, as we said, during that Four Nations tournament. He's still one of the best players in the world, not the best player in the world. You mentioned Dallas; they're always there every year, and it's like Colorado's been up and down this year. St. Louis is struggling, so I still believe that Western Conference can be on. Maybe this will be the year for the Winnipeg Jets. I'm not giving it to them just yet. It could be, but that Western Conference is right over. You don't have a dominant team. You don't have that one dominant team like we have had in years past.
Oh, I love this time of year in hockey. So yeah, gonna be watching. Guys, should be watching a lot more hockey. I want to see what the ratings are in that those ABC games. Yeah, probably not the 8 million that watched that Four Nations final between Canada and the United States. So yeah, I want to see those numbers. So that's probably the most hockey that folks gonna be watching for the rest of the season until the Stanley Cup playoffs. So it is what it is. But anything else you want to chime in about before we move on?
Yeah, let's move on.
All right, this is Second City Sports on Sports with Chicago. Keena McGee, Cindy Brown with you. And real quick, going back to college hoops this time on the women's side, we got a new number one, and that is the Texas Longhorns. It's actually the first time since '04 since the Longhorns have been number one. This is after
TJ Ford and crew.
Well, yeah, they were right around that time. So yeah, but yeah, I mean, look, Vic Schaefer's done a great job building that program. Of course, he went to the Final Four with Mississippi State for 2 straight seasons back in the early teens, 20 teens, if you will. Now he's been able to build that Texas program. Now they're number one. Notre Dame lost to NC State by 9 yesterday, so that's the reason why they're now the new number one. Talk about Texas is. So yeah, like I said, no more undefeated. So they've got a few weeks left in the season. So it's gonna be interesting to see what the women's side. I know that USC. I know with Juju Watkins, they beat Illinois yesterday. So it's gonna be interesting to see how this goes. But this could be a pretty wide open tournament for the women. So that should be interesting.
Yeah, I'll definitely be looking at the women's game just a little bit more. You mentioned with Juju Watkins, she is the it girl for college basketball. I don't want to disrespect Paige Beckers of UConn. You know, she'll be on her way out the door after this season. You have to take a look at them. Of course, my girl Dawn Staley, the head coach of South Carolina. You would think they'll be the favorites. It'll be them first, UConn second, and USC third.
Like I said, it's gonna be all about matchups. So we'll see what it's gonna be all about matchups. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. They're gonna be in Tampa this year, so we'll see what happens there. So I think that place is gonna be rocking. I think they're playing where the University of South Florida plays their basketball game. Excuse me. So gonna be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, it should be a fun last couple of weeks of the season because they're in the whole stretch of their seasons as well.
All right, you're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago. Sid Lakina here with you before we close out with our Black History Salute for Old School TV Monday, our last one for the month and for the year. As far as Black History Month is concerned, we lost 2 legends over the weekend, one in the R&B soul community. But first, we'll stick with sports. And Al Troutway, the longtime broadcaster for NBC's Olympic and cycling coverage, and of course, for the Madison Square Garden Network, and those of you in the New York State tri-state area, he passed away earlier today. Lakina, he does have a connection to Chicago. Remember on MLK Day, January of 1990, Trent Tucker hit the game winner. Now, to most people's chagrin, that was the first year of the 10th of the second rule in the NBA, the 89-90 season. If that was today's times, that shot wouldn't have counted because 1/10 of the second left, you touched the ball, game over. That wasn't the case on that day. Al Troutway was on the call for that one for MSG, filling in for Marv Alvin on that day. And of course, during the 30 for 30 Reggie Miller versus the New York Knicks, they had a couple of clips of Al Troutway. Of course, he hosted a game. He was the pre and post game host on MSG for the New York Rangers, the New York Nets, and the New York Knicks as well. And he filled in sometimes for Yankees baseball. But during that Reggie Miller 30 for 30 for ESPN, they had a couple of clips of him interviewing Reggie Miller. And Reggie Miller says, "Halo, I'm not, I'm a good guy. I don't do this." We all know what that whole Knicks Pacers rivalry was all about. But Al Troutway was a constant professional during his time at MSG, and of course, he, as I mentioned, he did the Olympic coverage for NBC and for cycling. Of course, Lance Armstrong's name was big, and Al Troutway was behind the mic for that. So a constant professional. I didn't know how he was that old, but he was a legend, and he will definitely be missed.
Yeah, he was around a long time. I remember seeing him. He was doing halftime scores during the 80s for ABC's college football coverage. He did college hoops as well on ABC. He actually, if you guys remember, going back to the movie Cool Runnings, a movie that we'll be dedicating for Old School TV Monday at some point. He was on the call for, when Jamaican bobsled team.
That's right.
During that time. Yeah. So of course he does other Olympic sports as well for both ABC. I think he also did for CBS too, for those 2 times that CBS had those Winter Olympics. And of course, ABC's coverage as well. He did both. I think he did cycling. I think a couple other Olympic sports as well. So just a very versatile, play-by-play guy. And he kind of let the he wasn't didn't let the get too into the sports coverage. He kind of let the action do the talking. He kind of told the story there. He was only 68 years old, which you don't think is you think it's kind of young, but isn't old. But yeah, he's been doing stuff for a long time. He was doing things for a long time, like you said, for all his great work at MSG as well.
Yeah, so he was a constant professional. He didn't let the story get too big for him. He was never a me first guy. Oh, look at me, and I didn't. I'm not trying to be an entertainer. Not all everybody has an effect in terms of doing both, being an entertainer and being professional. But he was a constant professional. Yeah, he did the job to the best of his ability, and his presence definitely would be missed.
Yes, he will. And I know Alan Hahn, know that he was a mentor of his. They worked he worked together there for a couple years. Of course, Alan does a lot of stuff with MSG, and also you see him on Get Up
Mhm.
occasionally. He has his own show also on the New York affiliate of ESPN Radio. So I know he's taking the news pretty hard as well. He actually was the one who broke the news. So
I saw
rest in
that
peace.
tweet that he did this morning.
Yeah. So I know he's taking it really hard. So rest in peace to Mr. Trauig, and prayers to him and his family and his colleagues like Alan over at MSG, and also all the other folks he worked for over the years at ABC and ABC, NBC, and CBS. Easy for me to say. So our thoughts and prayers go out to him. Right here on Second City Sports.
Yes. And we lost another legend, and this news broke a couple of hours before. Roberta Flack, the famous R&B soul singer, she passed away at the age of 88. She had countless number one hits, including "Feel Like Making Love," "Killing Me Softly" with his song, which was redone by the hip hop group The Fugees in the
Mm-hmm.
90s, in '96 to be exact. If you remember the MTV Video Music Awards that year, the Fugees actually brought her out to sing the song. I
Mm-hmm.
thought it was one of the best moments in MTV Video Music Awards history. She also had other hits like "The First Time I Saw Your Face," "First Time I Ever Saw Your Face," and she had countless duets with the late great Donny Hathaway as well,
Mm-hmm.
including "Back Together Again" and "Where's the Love." I
Yep.
know that she was criticized at the time because she wasn't like all the other singers that came out of the Stax Records family or the Chess Records family or the Motown factory at the time, but she carved a niche for herself in the popular singing world. I know that we did this show about a year ago called the Hogan Family and the Harper Family. She
Mm-hmm.
did the theme
Yep.
for that TV show as well.
Yes, she did.
So she had elegance, she had grace, and she had a soothing sound that you can enjoy for hours. And she's definitely going to be missed. I didn't know she was that old. She passed away at age 80. I didn't know she was that old, but uh, her presence and her professionalism, it's just the way that she delivered the songs. That's something that cannot be touched. It should be respected.
Yeah, she also did. I know P.O. Bryce. I know he posted something there because, of course, tonight I celebrate my love for you. Back in the mid
That's right.
'80s, it was a
Yes.
huge hit. Both on R&B and in the pop chart. She has 6 top 10 pop hits and 10 top 10 R&B hits. And like you said, of course, a lot of them with Donny Hathaway. And if now what had happened to him, back in '79, who
Hmm.
knows how many hits that those two would have had together. But of course, "Killing Me Soft" is probably the most well-known hit because, of course, it was redone by the Fugees back in the early '90s, and
Hmm.
just a versatile singer, and she did a little songwriting as well. And like you said, she kind of came out of the more independent, part of it. She wasn't part of those
Hmm.
big record companies, like you said a minute ago. She kind of was able to build her audience up, and
Hmm.
she did just that. So yeah, 88 years old. I mean, that sounds about right for her. But
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah. So rest in peace to her as well. One of the legends of both R&B and pop music as well.
Yeah, and also too, I forgot the name of it, but Showtime did a documentary on her about 6, 7 years ago, in which chronicled her life and her career through the '70s and the early '80s too. I forgot what that documentary is called, but I'm sure we'll have the title for you on our next episode coming up on Friday. But I thought they did a great job of chronicling her life from singing and behind the scenes as well. So, like you said, at the time, she really didn't get her flowers, and hopefully,
Hmm.
even though it's in transition to an afterlife, hopefully she'll get more of the respect that she deserves.
Yeah, so I know her son is a musician himself. So prayers to him and the rest of her family, and another great music legend that will be missed.
Yes, we send our condolences to the Roberta Flack family here from Sports Zone Chicago and Second City Sports.
All right, you listen to Second City Sports on Sports with Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Now, let's end on a lighter note, Sid. Well, of course, we're gonna wrapping up our series, saluting black sitcoms for Old School TV Monday. And we're going to be dedicated to a show that actually was supposed to celebrate their 40-year anniversary last year, but certain parameter. Well, we'll get to any of that. But that show we're talking about is drum roll, please. The Cosby Show. That's right. Yep, the Cosby Show. Yep, that's right, folks. The show aired for 8 seasons, starting in September of 1984 through May of 1992. It centered on a prominent black family, upper middle class black family in Brooklyn, New York. You had Dr. Heathcliff Huxtable, who was a doctor, an obstetrician. You had the lawyer, the wife who was a lawyer, Claire Huxtable. Then he had 5 kids going through the trials and tribulations of growing up, and all types of hilarity, shenanigans, how you want to say it, ensues. Of course, the show was nominated for multiple Emmys. It was actually nominated for Best Comedy Series, its first season. Of course, they lost to the Golden Girls, which also started airing that same year. The only all kinds of guest stars went through that show. We'll get to some of those in a second. But Sid, I mean, it was groundbreaking because you really didn't see black families in that realm of the upper middle class. They weren't like rich, but they were definitely very financially stable and such. I mean, they weren't like Good Times and those sitcoms, back in those days. I know Bill Cosby, this was his brainchild. He actually went to all 3 of the major networks at the time: CBS, NBC, and ABC. None of them said yes. Actually, it wasn't until Brandon Tartikoff actually was promoted to a network president at NBC, where Cosby approached him again. He said yes, and all this stuff, and the rest was history. So what's interesting is that at that time, everyone thought that the sitcom was dead. By the time like the Happy Days and the Three's Companies, those shows ended. We'll do those shows at some point as well, but the sitcom was dead. So the fact that it was not only a sitcom but also a black sitcom that actually kind of brought NBC up to the abyss, because they became the #1 network thanks to the Cosby Show for a lot of parts, and also the fact that the sitcom was back because of them, and other things started inspired after that. But yeah, see the Cosby Show, all the other stuff, leave all that aside, but it was really a groundbreaking show that should definitely be getting its flowers.
And let's not forget that Bill Cosby had important people in positions of color, in important positions like the cameraman, directors. I know this for sure. Bill Cosby got that for Don Cornelius, who did the same thing when he ran Soul Train. But I saw an interview with Malcolm Jamal Warner on YouTube not too long ago. He talked about the reason why he believed that the show was so successful is because they didn't use any black stereotypes to get their point across. Like the Fresh Prince did a little bit in their first couple years, or in Living Color, even though In Living Color is a sketch comedy show, not a family show. They used humor in a way for everybody can relate to. And you mentioned with the cast of the Cosby Show, they were going through trials and tribulations of life. They had storylines that everybody could relate to, and they didn't, like you said, Lakina, unlike A Different World at times, which I didn't mind at times, but unlike A Different World at times, they didn't beat you over the head with those serious messages. They got that message across, but they didn't have to insult your intelligence, if you catch my drift. And one quick fun fact about the Cosby Show: it spends 5 consecutive seasons as the #1 rated show on television, and along with All in the Family, it's the only sitcom in the history of the Nielsen ratings as the #1 show for 5 seasons, having spent the series in the top 20 ratings.
And also too, a little known fact that Keisha Napoleon was the only only Cosby kid that actually was nominated for an Emmy. She was nominated in 1989 for supporting actress. I think she was the youngest at the time. She didn't win, unfortunately, but at the time she was among the youngest to ever be nominated in that category. Some of the guest stars that appeared on the Cosby Show. We'll just do so because there were so many. Danny Kaye, one of his last TV appearances. So of course, you guys remember he played the dentist in that on that episode with Rudy and Peter when they went to the dentist. Robin Givens, right before she got the role on Head of the Class, she made an appearance on there. Blair Underwood, Christophe St. John, may he rest in peace.
Yes.
Christopher Plummer, Roscoe Lee Brown made a few appearances on there as he and Plummer actually appeared in the same episode too. If you guys remember that the Shakespeare episode, that was actually one of my favorite episodes as well. and just countless. Adams. If you guys remember Adam Sandler, those where
That's right.
yeah, when Theo was a senior in high school, he played one of his
Mhm.
best friends. So but long before he became the big star that he became, that was his first role, and he said he loved doing it. He said he and Malcolm are still good friends to this day.
Mhm.
So yeah, there was a lot of, it was definitely a lot of mixture of veteran act. Oh, Robert Culp, remember, of course, he and Cosby starred on I Spy together. Of
Oh,
course,
that's right. Yes,
he
yes,
appeared on the episode
yes.
as well. So yeah, it was definitely a who's who of before they were stars, and also veteran actors that appeared on the show in those
Yeah,
8 years.
like you said, even though there's a bunch of other names, just a couple of more. Current Anthony Payne II, before Martin Cockroach, Theo's best friend in high school and during those early years, and don't forget Stevie Wonder.
That episode, the episode of the anniversary episode actually just passed like a couple of days ago. So 40 years exactly to the day where of course I think he was fresh off winning another album of the year Grammy before
Mhm.
that. So but of course you think about Carl Payne, of course this, he hasn't said it, but it came out that he got fired from the show because he wouldn't cut his hair. So yeah, that was a little bit of a ditty there, but yeah, I mean, Erica Alexander. Look, I love her, but I'll be honest, the Pam character, I got used to her it would have been the last season, her second season. I mean, she got her, she got better. Of course, I love Carmelina White. Played her best friend Charmy.
Lance.
Yes, and of course Alan Payne played Lance,
Yeah.
of course. But yeah, you can kind of felt that. I didn't really care for the character. I don't want to say she was like the I guess like the cousin Oliver from the Brady Bunch. We'll do that show at some point. But it
Mhm.
kind of felt like I know I get she was filling a void because Tibbs Bledsoe at the time, she went to college and stuff, so they had to fill the teenage girl void. But to me, it would have been better if they had just got one of Vanessa's friends that we knew to fill in a void. But again, that's
Yeah.
just my opinion.
Here's another fun fact about the Cosby Show. Even though it did garner great ratings for this whole time on ABC, don't forget. Remember the series finale in April 1992. It did get big ratings with Cliff Huxtable finally fixing that damn doorbell. But
Yes.
remember, it was overshadowed by the LA riots at the time.
Yep. So yeah. It actually is up there as one of the top series finales. I think it's like in the top with all the shows that's been on
Mhm.
since that had series finales. I think it's like in the top 20, 25. So yeah, it's still like one of the top rated season finales. And it actually ended perfect, like you said, with the door fixing the door. But that was a year worth of storyline where Cliff couldn't fix the doorbell. So
Yeah.
So like you said, they had a nice mix of, of course, it they didn't beat you over the head with the life lessons. They kept it funny, they kept it light. They didn't do too many of the tropes. I know Cosby did not want to do that, but
Mhm.
but they kept it light, and funny, and and everything else. So if you remember, I kind of felt like I wish they kind of written in that Claire would have had a late pregnancy, and that would have been nice to kind of add another guy in there, because remember Rudy was supposed to have been a boy, but they couldn't find the boy, so they brought on,
Right.
they opened up the girls. Of course, Keisha Napoleon ended up getting the part. So, but yeah, I think it was still one of the top sitcoms, and you could watch a lot of the episodes on YouTube, and I think Facebook as well. Behind the scenes
TV One
stuff.
still airs them.
Yeah. Oh, good. That's good to hear.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there was something went on behind the scenes, but I'm sure it's gonna be a tell at some point. We'll see. If Lisa Bonet, I know she and Cosby had their
Yeah.
clashes, if you will. But again, we won't get into that. I'm sure it'll come out at some point. Other clashes, but even still, we'll talk about we'll talk about the show and leaving all the other stuff out of it.
Yeah. Real quick, I know we got a boogie, but favorite moment of the Cosby Show.
Oh gosh, like I said, I think the Shakespeare one with Christopher Plummer and Roscoe Lee Brown. I think that was a really cool episode. Oh, and then when they did the singing, when they did lip syncing too, they remember they did.
Oh, you talking about Cliff's parents' anniversary? Yes,
Yeah,
Rudy. Baby!
Yeah, I wish
Yes.
I wish they had kept doing that for the later seasons. I think those would have been great. Oh, of course, when Raven Simone came on, I didn't know they did that, but that would be nice if they kept that going for the whole series.
And
What about yours?
not just that was one of my favorite moments. Of course, Theo, when it was Cliff and Claire was his Cliff's parents was trying to. He had a homework assignment. Talking about Theo had a homework assignment about the civil rights movement, and I was actually watching the "I Have a Dream" speech from Dr. King. I thought that was one of my top moments. And another top moment was, remember Vanessa and her friends were trying to start a singing group,
Yes.
And Claire snapped,
Oh, yes.
the way the way that she saw them dressed. That was, I believe, it was 89 and 1990, if
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. But
Yeah.
I was having this conversation with one of my good friends via IG a couple months ago. I saw that clip coming up on my feed. I said, if that scene would have occurred today, each
Oh,
one of
no.
those girls would have had blonde wigs, blonde hair, tattoos all over their body, smoking weed, drinking, cursing out their parents. It would have been ugly, but it would have been ugly because today's times are just ridiculous. And the way that Claire, Felicia Rashad acted in that scene, it was hilarious. You could tell Cliff is like, yeah, y'all should be dressing like that. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, the clip is up on YouTube. It was hilarious. And then, of course, that time Vanessa drove to Baltimore and Claire snapped
Oh,
again.
gosh.
Oh, Claire, she's this nice mom. She'll never get upset. She doesn't, hate to use this term, but she doesn't keep it real. BS. She kept it real in those two scenes.
Yeah, I know. I know. I
You
remember
took a
Felicia.
trip
She
to
really.
Baltimore.
I remember her daughter said that kept her from kind of keeping her on trainer because she didn't want to have to deal with that. I remember her daughter Alexis that she, of course, she had with Ahmad Rashad. But I think another favorite episode I think was when Theo's teacher professor, she had, I think she was like Irish and she's also African American as well. That was a really great episode. Of course, Theo wanted to go to Egypt with his friends. Of course, I think it was his archaeology professor. She ended up, she didn't look like it, but yeah, she was black, and I think that woke up a lot of people. Like, well, wait a second. Oh, okay, so yeah, you don't have to actually look like a dark skinned person to be black. So I think that was another great moment. I'll even say, the last season. I know the last season was a little bit, you can kind of tell that it was sort of the last of it, but when Rudy tried to go get her friends tried to go to over 16 club, and of course Pam and Charmaine and Lance had to they had to dress up. Of course, they were recruited by Cliff and Claire to kind of try to keep an eye on them and such. That was actually I think you can say that was probably one of the few funny moments from that last season. You kind of tell that it was starting to kind of, because they were trying to do more topical stuff and doing this and that. It was just a little bit too much, but that was actually one of my favorite moments from that last season. So
yeah, I know we got a boogie, but two more guest stars. The late great Nancy Wilson, the famous jazz singer.
Oh,
I know Cliff loved her. Yeah, the couple of times she was on there, she was great.
Her.
And R.I.P. to the late great Michelle Thomas, who played Theo's girlfriend Justine.
Yeah.
Let's not forget about that. I want to end it on that note.
Yeah, she was there for like 3 years. I think about 3 years on that show. Yeah, because I think they got together. I think in high school. So so. A couple of other good ones there, but yeah, like I said, a lot of the episodes are on. Some of the episodes are on YouTube. I think Facebook. I think I forgot the site on Facebook where it has a full all 8 seasons worth of episodes, and I know TV1 still. I said that TV1 still airs them. So because unfortunately it's not streaming anywhere. So maybe that'll change. Hopefully, but
hopefully,
down the line, maybe never mind. But yeah, so but yeah, so it's unfortunate that this didn't get honored during their 40th anniversary last year, but we're gonna give them their flowers this week here on Second Stage Sports.
All right, to wrap up Black History Month 2025, Black TV sitcoms, we salute the 40th anniversary of the NBC 80s sitcom The Cosby Show. Lakina, take us home.
You can follow me at Kingdom Mickey on the Twitter, X, and again the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Cindy Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. Be sure to download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Please follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms. Please subscribe to our podcast. We are located at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And while you're ready, please give War Media a follow at WARR Media on all social media platforms. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Be sure to catch Second City Sports live in the living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And of course, you can catch replays of our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas, and so much more on the Sports of Chicago's Facebook and YouTube YouTube channels. Again, catch them anytime, anywhere. If you miss us live, don't worry. You can catch the replays anytime, anywhere on the Sports of Chicago's Facebook and YouTube channels.
And we will provide.
All right, enjoy the men's and women's college hoops. You got NBA, baseball, spring training, and so much more. And if you guys like the combine, you can watch that as well all week long. For Sid, I'm Lakina. Enjoy all this gorgeous weather that's going to be happening through most parts of the country. And be safe out there. This has been Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. We'll see you guys Friday.
Do, 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 do. Holla!